What are the long-term plans of Sharia Finance Market? In this video, I'll be setting out the long-term plans for Sharia Finance Market in terms of its investment fund and the investment strategy that it's going to be using. So this is one of those videos, hopefully I'll be looking back in 10 years time thinking, this was the goal and alhamdulillah, we have achieved it in its fullest form and that we've gone even further. The main thing that Sharia Finance Market has been established for is as a da'wah organization, of course, number one. And da'wah comes in many forms because da'wah doesn't just only mean the propagation of Islam to, for example, non-Muslims or to Muslims who are not practicing and to bring them closer to Islam. Da'wah is also for yourself. You give da'wah to yourself. Don't forget, I'm listening to my words first. And I need to ensure that I'm going closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we go on in life. But along with being a da'wah organization, da'wah also means to establish structures to ensure that it's easy to practice Islam. And one of the key focuses for Muslims now living in the West should be the establishment of Islamic financial systems. Alhamdulillah, our forefathers, they spent the last 50, 60, 70 years establishing the madaris, establishing the masajid, getting the halal meat systems, educating us. I was born and brought up in the UK. It was because of the efforts of my grandfather and my parents that I was able to study in this country, to be able to memorize, to have teachers to memorize the Quran, to learn Arabic, to learn Usuluddin, all of these things. And most of my studies, in fact, I only studied 1 year in Saudi Arabia, and that was all to do with Quran and all to do with Arabic. Everything else I've studied in this country with scholars from this country. And that is no doubt an effort and a reward for them. But the next step now is that now we've got a vast Muslim population. We've got a population which is born and brought up in the West. We have to establish those structures. And one of the great things is that, especially in the UK, the British government has allowed for a Islamic financial systems to be set up within the framework of law. And they have made it easy and they want to make it a hub. And that's something which is great. So Sharia Finance Market wants to specifically focus on private equity models. Why? Because the last number of years, alhamdulillah, I've been working in the private equity model, buying businesses. And alhamdulillah, I love it. I enjoy it. So it's something that I only started a few years ago. I should have got into it when I was a lot younger, but I only found out about private equity models and buying businesses later in my 30s. So buying businesses is a passion of mine. Dealing, negotiating with sellers, going through the whole process, the due diligence process, the negotiation process, the completion process, of course, the running of the businesses, the setting up of management teams, and strategic thinking is absolutely fantastic. I love all of it. And it's something which, inshallah, I want to bring into for the Muslims. So I've learned from people who are in their 60s and they've been around for a long time and they've been buying and selling businesses for decades. They've been, in fact, some of them have been buying and selling businesses longer than I've been alive on this planet. So that just goes to show, you can get a team which is absolutely fantastic. Now, the goal for Sharia Finance Market is to ensure that we base it on the mudaraba structure. Now, we are a startup in 2023. Late 2022, actually in mid 2022, it was a brainchild of mine to start this, inshallah. And I went on holiday and everything, had some time to think about how I'm going to do it. And then in late 2022, we started this channel and we started the website. Of course, we start off with financing other businesses through the finance structures which are currently available, and also had to build the courses to ensure that Islamic education is available for adults who want to practice and get closer to their religion. Now, one thing, of course, many people, they come to their adult life and that's when they realize that they should get closer to their religion. And inshallah, just like I learnt in my adult age, I want to ensure that that is accessible for everyone through video courses and mentorship and classes, inshallah. But the long-term goal is to ensure that investments are available through the private equity model. Now, there's a lot of things to consider. Of course, you can go out and invest into the stock market. There's nothing wrong with that. The only problem with investing in the stock market is difficult to find 100% Sharia based or Sharia compliant stocks. And with private equity, you're able to bypass that whole situation because we can choose the businesses that we buy. We can choose the businesses that we go into, and they're completely 100% Sharia based, because we're using a Sharia model of mudaraba to ensure that we're buying a 100% Sharia based business. It has no income from haram sources. It does not deal in any haram business activities. All of the staff structures, the contracts. Now, contracts is a little bit different, because contracts, we can look at them and sometimes they may have clauses in there. For example, for late payment, then interest will be applied. We don't need to apply those. And over time, we can change those contracts to get rid of those clauses. Because, of course, as you know, there's no interest to be applied on any type of transaction in Islam. So, contracts we have to be a little bit more careful of, and we can develop them over time. However, buying the businesses to ensure that they're 100% halal in their core business activities and all their business activities, and that they have no income from any haram sources, then that is the way that we can move forward. Now, that's one thing of the businesses themselves. However, what about, buying them? Alhamdulillah, what I've found is that we can buy private businesses for anything from 2 to 4 times multiple of profit. It's about finding the right motivated buyers in the right situations to be able to get those businesses for good prices. Just to give you an example, the first business that I ever bought was we purchased it for 1.5 times EBITDA. Sorry, 1.5 times profit, not EBITDA. When I say profit, I mean net profit. So we got that deal for a very, very good price, alhamdulillah. And that, what that means for the layman terms, is that in 1.5 years, we paid for that business completely, and all of the profits that are generated after the 1.5 years is complete, pure, unencumbered profit. And that's unheard of, because I mean the yield on that is like 75% per year, because you're getting so much money back. The cash flow is immense that you're getting from that kind of business. The second business that we bought was for 2 times profit. And to be honest, we overpaid for that, because it was only the second business that I purchased, and the team, I was still building the foundations of the team. And although they were doing their job very, very well, I think we ended up overpaying it, looking back in hindsight. The third business that we get to completion was for 2.5 times EBITDA. Now you may be thinking, actually, first one was 1.5, second one was 2, third one's 2.5. It's getting more and more expensive. Actually, the quality of the third business is absolutely fantastic, and that's why we paid more for that business, 2.5 times. And again, people who are going around buying businesses, they're normally in the private market, are normally buying businesses for starting at 3 times profit, 3 times EBITDA. And so far, this high quality business, we've purchased it for 2.5 times EBITDA, which is 0.5 times less. In layman's terms, that basically means that we paid just under 20% less for the price of that business than what general people who are buying businesses normally buy businesses for. And people pay from 3 upwards, by the way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times EBITDA for a business. And we've been purchasing them for way less than that. And we've got other businesses. There's a business that we're currently looking at the moment, and we are looking to pay 3 times EBITDA for that business. And the reason why we're looking to pay 3 times EBITDA for that business, because is the structure of that deal is highly flexible, and there is very little upfront investment for that business. So when you've got a deal structure like that, then of course you want to pay to ensure you get the deal done, and the sellers are looking at 3 times EBITDA to get that deal over the line. And we're happy to pay that because the structure is fantastic. So finding these deals, negotiating these deals, and getting those deals to completion has been my journey so far, and I absolutely love it. And of course, running the deals as well, because once you purchase them, they have to be run. Now, that's the other thing. When you're buying private businesses, just like public businesses too, private businesses need to have fantastic management teams. If the management teams are no good, and then therefore that business can fail. And that's why you need to look at specific things with private businesses, which you don't have to look at when you're looking at public businesses. Because public businesses, they are already under so much scrutiny that private businesses don't have. And that's why when you're looking at a private business, there are so many things that you need to look at. For example, we learned that there needs to be a certain turnover for that business. There needs to be a certain operating profit. There needs to be a certain net profit before we even take a second look at the accounts. There needs to be a certain structure of the management team, of the teams and the management team. There needs to be a certain structure on profit generation, on product development, on service delivery. All of these things need to be looked at when you're looking at a private business. It's completely different to looking at a public company where you just look at the stock price and certain things, the compliance. For us, of course, looking at whether it's Sharia compliant, and if it is, then you go ahead and purchase it. But for us, when we're looking at private businesses, we're looking at so many other things along with the price of that business. So private equity investing or private equity model is a little bit more in depth up front, but the returns are fabulous because again, if you can, when we look at that, essentially what we're saying is that we base all of our structures over a 5-year amortization model, which means that within 5 years, the price of that business needs to be 100% paid for. Actually, what we normally look at is that within 3 years, that price of the business needs to be 100% paid for. However, 5 years is the model that we look on with a certain buffer that we have. What we look at is that, for example, if that business costs £600,000 to purchase, we need to generate £600,000 worth of profit within 3 years. And then once that's done, then we know we've fully paid off for the business, and any profits thereafter are 100% unencumbered profits, which you can put into your pocket. And of course, when you do that across a single industry, then you build up so many synergies and opportunities to merge departments within those businesses, increasing profitability. You can merge services, increasing the amount of customers that you can sell to, customer lists. You can, for example, if you've got 2 companies which have 2 bookkeepers, do you need 2 bookkeepers? You can have 1 bookkeeper for both of those companies. If you've got 5 companies all within a particular area and you don't need to have a premises to run those 5 businesses or an individual premises for those 5 businesses, you could shut down 3 of those sites and merge operations into 2 sites. And therefore you're saving on three offices or 3 premises worth of rent. That just all adds to the bottom line. So there's so many things that you can do. Private equity is in fact really flexible and you can do that. The only thing from an investor's perspective is that it's illiquid. So once you make your investment, is generally illiquid. Now with Shariah Finance Market, the long-term model is that we'll have a secondary market in which, if for example an investor invests, let's say £100,000 towards a project and they want to take out their £100,000, there may be a lock-in period. But what we want to do is we want to ensure that there's a secondary market that either Shariah Finance Market itself would purchase that from you for £100,000, as you normally do, or as companies normally do with share buybacks, or there would be a secondary market where another investor could buy your shares from you. And that's something which we will be working on to ensure that it's open, because what we want to do, not only do we want to make halal investments available for Muslims, we want good investments available for Muslims, but we want investments which Muslims can go into and come out as much as they can, within reason, of course. We can't say that you can put in money and take your money out the next day, because that's just going to be impossible. But of course, having maybe a very short lock-in period and a way to be able to take out your investment within a reasonable amount of time. Let's say, for example, every half year. And that's, I think, very, very reasonable. But the profits that can be made are absolutely fantastic with private equity models. Now, what about the long term? Let's say, for example, inshallah, that we are able to get to the business where it's making £1 million profit every single month. Now, what can you do with £1 million? I mean, I've got another video on the channel which is called the Muslim Money Formula. The Muslim Money Formula is, of course, you earn lots of money from income and investments, and you yourself live a simple life, and of course you give to people who need it, or give to institutions who need it. Now, £1 million a month, that's 12 million a year. What are you going to do with that money? The best thing that I can think of is to solve the number 1 problem which affects the Muslims in living in the West. And what is that? That is house financing. If we can ensure that with £1 million a month, for example, we keep a certain 100,000, not 100, but a certain number of £100,000, depending on what the needs of the company is, Let's say, for example, we need £250,000 worth of working capital per month. That leaves £750,000 that we can go and finance house purchases for Muslims. So, for example, let's say there's two Muslim families and they can both contribute, for example, £100,000 towards their first maybe 2-bedroom flat or something. Let's say that 2-bedroom flat costs them £300,000. Yeah. Then they put down £100,000, we put in £200,000, and we can finance in two, possibly three of those house purchases or those flat purchases every single month. Over a year's period, how many families can we help? And of course, we'll do it in a way which is 100% Sharia compliant to ensure. I mean, I currently at the moment of making of this video, primary finance probably has the best model, alhamdulillah, and that's something that we could emulate. Jazakallah khair for developing that model. And it just gives me ideas to help people. Anyway, that's a long-term plan. The main thing is to start off, because of course, in Islam, everything is based on a real economy. You have to have business that generates profit to retain within the company, and then inshallah the long-term plan is to help Muslims buy their first house. And that is a fantastic work. Not only we're educating Muslims with Islamic education, but we're helping them build their finances through investment and also build their lives through inshallah home purchasing. That is the ultimate goal. And inshallah, if I die in that process, and we've got people on the team who continue this work, inshallah, for Sharia Finance Market, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to help the Muslims living in the West, then I think, alhamdulillah, I have done my job. So I hope this gives you inspiration and gives you some idea. Hopefully, inshallah, I'm looking back 10 years from 2023, January 2023, and this is actualized, and we're actually helping people buy their houses, inshallah, and we've got that in full swing. And maybe, Allah knows what could be the opportunities at that time. But we need to come together. We need to be able to ensure that Muslims own businesses. Muslims need to become the owners. Own your own businesses, build your own futures, build your own strong ummah, inshallah, living in the West, and help the individual families, the individual Muslims buy their first houses through Sharia Finance Market. And wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.